Hello viewers, this is just a random stream that I am doing. I'm going to prepare the chat box. Let me see. I remember I was able to do this somehow. Let me see those settings. Let me see. Fancy zones. Shift. Alright, shift. I suppose I use shift, honestly. Oh, goodness. Look at that. It's Jazz. Hello, Jazz. Goodness. My goodness, it's Jazz. Jazz is up. Jazz is looking at the stream. That's amazing. I am just trying to set this up, basically. I do not do these often, but I am trying to use a few of the programs that I have to basically have the box in one place. And if I cannot do that, I probably will try to figure out how. But I will probably figure this out at some point. I thought it was Control and T. That's what they said, but what? What did I do? Goodness. Okay. Control and T. And there was something called Fancy Zones. Shift and no. I wanted to use this one. But let me see. Maybe. Nothing. For some reason it is not working that well. I'm going to have to see if I can. I know this box is now it's inside here. Okay, let me see. Is it Shift T? No, it's not that. Oh, maybe it's no. I know there was a way I had done this before. Let me take a look. Options. Shift and Z. Okay, Shift and Z. Oh goodness, no. Not type here. Okay. No. It seems like I'm tapping into the chat box. Let me see if I can take this out and then put it back in again. I really do not know how I had. Oh, Shift Control plus Z. That's interesting. That's the hotkey. Shift and Control. Alright. Let me see if that works. Alright. So it made it clear, but it didn't it doesn't keep it. It doesn't really keep it here. No, that's not working. I'm gonna see if I can do this again. If I dockable window. Okay, let me see if I can get this dockable window out. I don't know what I did, to be honest. Docks. Where are the docks? Okay, I want the chat box. Alright, the chat box is right here again. Let me see if that worked. I didn't hear a noise though. Okay, the sound is working. So let me see. So I think the one I'm using is always on top, but that says Control. Okay, and that button. And T. Okay. This is interesting. Alright, I heard the sound. Let me see if that works. That does work. There we go. Well, that's good. Okay. That's good. Yeah. I have to get in the hang of doing this again, honestly. Yeah. I think the microphone is working. I think I have sound. So it is fixed, basically. Yes. Alright. That is good to see. Let me see the chat. I have to switch the chat box from top chat to live chat so that the chat filter will not filter out words as spam, which is very annoying that I have to do that each time, but I do because YouTube is a platform. They have some dumb filters. But anyhow, this morning I just wanted to talk about... Oh, that's good. You're still here. That's good. Yes, I just wanted to talk about the content, basically. But how have you been doing, Jazz? Are you happy? What have you been doing? What have you been doing, basically? You can just type something there. Just how you're feeling, basically. But anyhow, I just wanted to talk about the content. I have a lot of subscribers that have come, that are new. They have come from basically for different types of content, which if you have a channel in which, oh, that's good, that is wonderful. But if you have a channel that deals with all manner of issues, and yes, the gameplay, I know it's all girls. That does not make me a girly boy. Anyhow, it's pretty. That's the important thing. The important thing is that it's pretty and it's something to look at while I talk. Anyhow, when you have a channel that has all manner of different types of content, you have subscribers and viewers from a wide range of basically backgrounds and people who subscribe for different reasons. So basically, I started with video games and manga, and those were manga narration videos. mostly to show people what was in the manga and just how, I guess, some of the themes in it were quite strange in manga like Claymore, and I talked about Demon Souls. Since then, I've talked about religion and cultural and social issues, which has done quite well. People are very interested in those videos. There are also, I think I have 2 videos about Baldur's Gate 3, which was a very interesting game. To be honest, people were quite satisfied with it, but personally, I think the D&D system that they tried to implement will never work in video games because video games are just too small for what they may call role play. They just are. And the game felt small, not to mention they did a lot of interesting things historically. People said it was not historical. They said there should be more dresses in an older setting, but to be honest, video games themselves now are, for the most part, overpriced things that are not, I just do not enjoy them like I used to, and I do not often play. Basically, most of the video games I used are merely for the purpose of commentary on videos. They're basically something pretty to look at while I talk. And other than that, I really have very little use for them. But people were interested in the FromSoft videos. There were at least 2 or 3 people who were very, very, very interested in them. I even have a forum that I have not posted to in a long time, specifically for Elden Ring. Now there were also, and there have been also a lot of videos having to do with religion, especially Christianity, but also subjects about Hinduism and New Age religion. New Age is the new name for a particular type of religion called Theosophy, that was created by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. She had a good deal of associates. She was related to, or at least had associations with particular, how should it be said, fraternal societies that have a great deal of influence even today. And I often talk about those things. A good deal of individuals, especially Christians, are very interested about that subject. The subject of New Age religion. Many Christians do not really do very much research about it, but it is becoming a fixture in many churches today. Whereas it seems as though it's sort of being mixed into what may be called the type of Christian mysticism in general. If you do not know very much about religion, religion itself, any religion that you talk about or that you deal with or that you examine, it can be divided into 2 categories in an abstract way. Regardless of which religion you were talking about, whether it be Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, New Age religion is quite different because it sort of mixes in things from just about every popular religion or, old religion, so to speak. But in regard to just about any religion, you have fundamentalists and you have mystics. You also have mystical fundamentalists. When we talk about mystery in the context of religion, oftentimes, at least from a Christian perspective, these things have to do with personal experience. The idea is that one has fundamental principles as well as personal experience, and that both of these things, in a sense, comprise what one may call religion. That is to say, belief system, worldview, Weltanschauung, or any of the other words that we may use for ideologies of any sort. Synonyms, there are many different synonyms for religion. Abstractly, religion is simply ideology. To be honest, that can be also described as philosophy in general. But nonetheless, many Christians are very interested about New Age religion because they're starting to see it in their churches. Ideas like the law of attraction, for example. The idea that you can attract things to you and that the universe will give them to you. This is an idea that many people on the channel have basically gotten to be familiar with as I've talked about it. The idea is based upon the conclusion that some people have come to, that an impersonal universe can give them something. And as some of us may or may not know, that which is impersonal does not have any sort of personal connection to anything. The lamp that I'm sitting on, the sofa that I'm sitting on, and the lamp that is near me are impersonal things. They do not really have any sort of personal connection to me. A personal individual is a person who has a personal mind. And so the idea of God bestowing or giving something to a person, or sort of directing their life, is in a sense a personal idea and a conclusion that a person has in regard to a personal entity, in a personal individual who they have a connection with. New Age ideas and what we may call theosophical ideas are ideas in which the impersonal universe, what may be called the universe, is considered to be something that is in some wise conscious and yet still impersonal at the same time, which seems like an impossibility, and actually, if you think about it, is a logical fallacy. It really is illogical. Why would you pray to the universe? I have no idea. I talked about in my latest video, Monique prays to the universe, about Monique basically saying this. The only time she would say God was when she said God damn, which was very interesting. I think all of us should ask the question, what does it mean to pray to the universe? What is the universe? Words are very substantial. When we use words, our question should be, what do they mean? Things like this are not just idly said. This actually comes from a very popular religious understanding that, as I said, New Age religion teaches the idea of an impersonal, an impersonal God to an extent. But I would have to ask this question. God, in a sense, can be a synonym for ruler, king, emperor, what have you. Someone who is over something, in a sense. In the old sense, a king could be considered a god. But is the universe a king? Is the universe personal? Can you have a connection to the universe on a personal level? Think about this. Does the universe care about you? What is the universe? Is the universe what we may call creation, the totality of all existence, or is the universe something else? Obviously, the sofa that I am sitting on, and you, Jazz, have seen the red sofa that I am on right now. This is part of the universe. This red sofa that I am on can do nothing for me. The red sofa that I am on does not even have a mind. But people are saying these things. So what is the universe? The universe is the whole world, cosmos. Let me see if I can basically choose dictionaries as I see fit. With Rogers to the new thesaurus. Let me take a breath. And Jazz, one day, if you want to learn how to do these breaths, these 6 healing sounds, I can teach you too. Alright. That helps me to catch my breath. And it is good for my organs. When people talk about the universe, they are talking about the totality of all existing things. There are people who are saying they pray to the universe or that the universe is sending them things. Now, me and Jazz, we know someone called Bill, and we know Lisa, who is part of our family, also believes in this law of attraction. Basically, they believe the universe gives them things. All they have to do is attract it to them with positive thoughts and positive energy, whatever any of that means. But this is an idea. A lot of people on this channel who watch these videos, they like to know about some of these more theosophical ideas. Many people do not know very much about them or how it works. The idea is that there is no personal God who can think, judge, or do anything of its own. The idea in theosophy is that every person is a God and the universe itself is God. But how does that make any sense, since the universe is the totality of all existence, and the universe is not technically individual in any sense? The universe is just everything. And therefore, if God isn't in an abstract sense, by very definition is some type of ruler or personal individual, then the universe being God or being something relatable to anyone on a personal level, I would just simply say this: it does not make sense. It does not make sense. And maybe that is the point. Maybe that is the point, in a sense. But basically, this word is online etymology dictionary. It can mean supreme being, but it is sort of a general word. Let me see. Okay, the etymology dictionary is not really giving me very much here in terms of definition, but basically even a king can be considered a god. So religious subjects are something that I do talk about on the channel. A lot of people are very interested in those. As well as the type of videos that have to do with Christian influencers. Let me take a look and see if I can find specific dictionaries that give me a good definition here. Okay. Let me see. Someone who thinks that, no, that's not what I'm looking for. I was looking for something more general. But that word can be used in a general way. But the idea is that whatever God is, even on not in the supreme sense, just a king or whoever. So basically, we have from the Webster's Third New International Dictionary. Let me take another breath. I know that sounds weird, but that really does help my breathing more than any of you might know. But let me see. Person, basically, the very definition for God, even when it is not being used in the supreme sense, still has to do with a person. A person or thing that is honored as a god or deified, something held to be of supreme value. So, these theosophical ideas are very confusing to many of us. These New Age ideas are very confusing to many of us. How the universe is giving anyone anything for having positive thoughts. It is still a mystery. Personally, I think that there are some particular devils or demons or Satan himself who wants to give people things. I mean, people have heard stories. I've heard stories personally of people. I do not think it is what we may call God giving them these things. And I have my own reasons for that, which I could elaborate upon. But if you read the Gospels, Jesus was tempted. Satan said he could give him everything, anything in the world. That is because Satan is the god of this world. The idea is that the physical itself is something limiting and carnal, beneath the spiritual. Whether you talk about the ideas of even even who was I thinking about? Old philosophers and different individuals throughout history. There was an understanding that the physical is lowly. Anything you can gain on this world is a lowly thing and not really comparable to the spiritual, which is eternal. Everything that you have in the world will perish. Everything that you have in the world, you only have for a set amount of time. This is a very important subject upon this channel. For those of you who do not know, in a sense, this is also an update video. I do these videos every so often. I just decided for today, I might as well sort of go into detail about what the channel is about. I do this sometimes. I have done this at least 3 or 4 times. But since I have so many subscribers from such a wide variety of basically ideas, backgrounds, ideologies, people who come for different reasons, different purposes, it makes sense for me to basically tell people what type of content they can expect or see here. The religious subjects that we basically discuss, or that I discuss, for the most part have a good deal of what, a good deal to do with what may be called, the spiritual, and of course the religion itself, Christianity itself, the religion of Jesus itself is itself completely dedicated and relating to the spirit, not anything having to do with the physical. And we talk about, or at least I talk about, the difference and rather the significance of the Old Testament in view of the significance of the New Testament. Israel is gone. This is something that I talked about in one particular video having to do with the nation of Israel. What we call Israel is really just the body of Christ, the holy nation, the peculiar people, the chosen race that you read about in the Gospels. The Bible says that the kingdom has been taken from you, the Pharisees, and given to another nation bearing fruit. The Lord does not want carnal fruit, the Lord wants spiritual fruit. And so this is the idea. You can look at particular books, for example, those writings of Dionysius, the Areopagite, all very interesting and very good reading. In his writings, you can find the tradition of mysticism in the Christian sense, which is very important to us. Fundamentalism is a very good thing, to know what scriptures and books say. Very good. At the same time, personal experience in prayer and a relationship with God is of superlative importance, even more substantial than any fundamentalism a person may have. The fundamentals are good. However, the key fundamental is prayer in a relationship with the Lord, which, truth be told, I have not done as much work in discussing what may be called the experiential and mystic aspect of this religion as much as I would want to. These videos do take a good deal of time, and I am going to have to read some particular books again, as well as select the relevant quotes for a good deal of comprehensive videos about the subject of prayer and many other things. When we talk about experience, that is to an extent what we are talking about, discourse and even a lack of discourse between you and the Supreme Being. What may be called, the Father, basically, the Lord, or whoever. Basically, that is a completely personal matter. Something that is of the heart and not just reading. Reading is a good thing, and a person can learn a good deal from reading. However, there are some things a person really does have to learn from experience. Things that you cannot really gain from just reading scriptures. That is the matter of what we may call contemplation. And that is a very important subject. And frankly, in a sense, that may be called the sort of communing with God in a sense. In regard to discourse, in regard to prayer, one of the most important verses to keep in mind is pray without ceasing, something which cannot be done without personal contemplation on a very spiritual level. In other words, even in prayer, not only is one going to be engaging in discourse in one's mind, at times that discourse may end. You run out of words and yet you still continue the prayer. Not in a sense of Buddhist meditation, but in the sense of just a person literally enjoying and really basking in the presence of God. And if you think that this is interesting, you should try it. Just sitting in the presence of God, being in the presence of God, with your eyes closed in silence. Quiet and silence is very important in prayer. Many people do not know very much about this because they do not really know the history of basically prayer in general. Of, for example, the relationship between Paul and Dionysius the Areopagite. Dionysius was a friend of Paul, and Dionysius had written books about basically what we may call prayer and what may be called Christian mysticism. It may very well be that if you look at his writings and you take into account that this individual apparently was the friend of Paul, you would come to the conclusion that mysticism itself was, that is good. You're listening. That means you're going to learn something. That is excellent, Jazz. Jazz is a young woman, and she's learning today. This is excellent. But anyhow, Dionysius had basically wrote about a number of subjects which may be considered Christian or even Neoplatonic in nature. Very, what we may call philosophical, very spiritual type writings. As I said, much of this has to do with a communion with God on a personal level, which itself, no matter how much you read, this, what may be called the mystery of worship, has to be experienced. Now, that is entirely different from what may be taught by individuals. For example, we have been talking, or I have been talking on this channel, about the idea of supreme reality that Hindus and New Age people have been promoting. Some of these people have been quite odd. I do not know if you saw the video about the yogis who came to my video about Maharishika Preeti, a Hindutva bigot who supports the actions of the Hindutva political group over there in India. They go around burning churches, messing with Christians and Muslims. There are also Sikhs that do the same thing. So this is a matter of Sikhs and Hindus engaging in wanton destruction of property, of lives, and just basically messing with Christians in general over there in India because they can, and they have a majority. And because of that, they feel very powerful. Now, this is a reality in certain countries like India and China, and there's really nothing anyone can do about it at all. Truth be told, Asia is probably one of the worst places for any, in certain countries, peradventure not the Philippines, unless you are one of those aboriginal black Philippines of the Eta tribe. Then you have to deal with a whole nother type of discrimination. There was a story not too long, or rather, it may have been a long while ago, but it was not too long ago, peradventure this year or last year or a few years ago, of some Filipino soldiers taking one of these ATAs, and to explain how they look basically like black people with afros. They look like black people with big bushy hair, for the most part. Not to say everybody has big bushy hair, but basically they look like dark-skinned and light-skinned black people for the most part. Some of them have lighter skin, some of them have darker skin, but for the most part they look like black American people, foundational black American people, such as me and Jazz. These people, that is how they look. They have been on the Philippines for a longer time than the Asian light-skinned sort of Philippines. There are also black Aboriginal people in Thailand. There are also black Aboriginal people in Malaysia. Now, when we talk about black, we are talking about a social status. White and black are a social status. This is important for Jazz because they're never going to do critical race theory in the schools, at least in this school system. Not to mention the fact that particular type of teaching is not so very effective. But however, we as foundational black Americans like to know our history, or at least a good deal of us do, who have sense. And then there are other ones who do not have sense and they really do not care. But anyhow, that is fine. People make their own decisions. I have to take a breath before I run out of breath. One moment. All right. That helps me. Now, anyway, basically in Asia, there are people called negritos. Now, negro is a Spanish word that means black. Niger, and if we do a hard G, is a Latin word that means black. Basically, black is a social status. You will never find anyone black. However, if there was a black person, that would be excellent, because the idea of blackness in general, in regard to our Bibles, is so important that you wouldn't believe. The book of Genesis says that everything was basically black and formless substance. Everything was dark. The idea of blackness is an idea of passivity before God. In a sense, black as a color is not necessarily an evil color. In the book of Lamentations, it says that the Hebrews were black upon the ground in their mourning. If you read about the Ancient of Days, who was the father of Jesus, God, the Father, is considered to have hair like wool. Hair like wool is what we may call black hair. Black hair is like wool. Not every person who is considered black has hair like wool. My mother, and for example, has hair that is not particularly like woolen hair. Her hair is sort of straighter. Now, most black people, however, do have hair that is curly and woolly. Not just curly, but woolly. And so, the Bible says the Ancient of Days has hair like wool. You have to remember, this is the father of Jesus. In the book of Revelations, says that Jesus has hair like wool, as white as snow. His feet are like burnt brass. Now, if you take brass and if you put it in the fire and burn it, that brass is very dark. This is something many of us already know. This is something that particular Hebrew Israelites have talked about. They have been very against, and I am not a Hebrew Israelite. I'm not part of that group, so to speak. However, they have raised some very important questions, and they were not the first to point out the historical fact that what we call Hebrews or Jews, the historical depiction of them even, were dark people with curly hair, with Africoid, what may be called Negroid features. Now, we know that there are dark people with woolen hair. You know, there's a history of them being in so many different places. There are also dark people with straight hair. Basically, the theory of evolution itself is not something that I really subscribe to. However, they are right in the sense that they are right that dark people were the first and primal people, and that lighter people came from dark people. Basically, lighter people came from dark people. Alright? This is the idea. And this is, in a sense, the truth. The oldest skeletons are of Negroid characteristics. And they have to deal with dominant and recessive genes. The idea is that the thicker lips become thinner. The thicker nose, the wide nose becomes sharper. Essentially, the features sort of are sharpened over time in the Asian and European populations. And basically, a person could go into other discussions about the vitamin D paradox. Scientists are still trying to understand how dark people can live in places like Europe and America in colder climates and still have very strong bones, and basically have stronger bones than their European counterparts. This is still not understood. The idea was that lighter skin would be able to absorb more vitamin D. However, the vitamin D paradox is something that scientists have recognized. And the paradox is this. Dark people have lived in these climates. They have done research and studies in cold climates where dark people somehow, even though they get less vitamin D because their skin is darker, apparently they still have stronger bones, which makes very little sense to scientists and people who research health. This is sort of the original type of body. So there are people who don't really understand just how valuable, their own skin is. And I'm talking to my fellow foundational black Americans, or if you're black of another particular nationality, that is fine too. Many of us have developed, or some people have, what may be called an inferiority, and an idea of inferiority. I really do not like using the word inferiority complex. To be honest, I just do not like the term of art. To be honest, it's just that some people feel inferior because of their darker skin and their, Negroid features. And Negroid is an antiquated racial terminology, but the idea is still used. The idea of Mongoloid, Caucasoid, and Negroid is still used for the determination of skulls and races. In other words, when they look at skeletons, they look at the skull. They can tell what race a person is by looking at the skull features. The reason they can do this is because basically people from continents like Africa, for the most part, or what may be called, just black people in general, often have certain features like thicker lips and thicker noses, like wider noses. They have eyes that look a certain way. They have nose that look a certain way. They have lips that look a certain way, a skull that looks a certain way. And so with any skull, for the most part, you can determine what type of race that person sort of fits into, at least to a high degree, whether it's Mongoloid, that is to say Asian, more black features, more African type features, as well as Caucasoid features, which are more sharper features, or North African and European features of sharp noses, thin lips, but not necessarily in regard to many people from the Near East and even North Africa, because many of those people do have thicker lips and more Negroid features, which a person could talk about the effect of the Arab conquest in Africa too, and how that affected the racial demographics of Africa in general, and especially North Africa. But anyhow, Northeast and Northwest Africa, to be honest. But, I mean, these subjects are very interesting. I do talk about them. I also talk about Aboriginal people in general. Excuse me. And I hope to expand those conversations about Aboriginal people. That is an extremely interesting subject. I would also like to talk more about the Romani. There were ideas that not all of them were just Indian immigrants to Europe, but there were ideas that some of these people some of these Romani, that is to say gypsy. If some of you do not know what I mean when I say Romani, I mean gypsy. Let me take a breath, people. All right. That is an interesting population as well, because in this population, the gypsy people have been told, due to DNA testers, which are always odious in my opinion. When DNA testers come to you and say, oh, well, black American man, we know which tribes and which places of the world you come from, which is foolish. Race is a social construct. Race is something based upon particular human observation and social interaction. Race is not something that can be determined through the use of what may be called modern knowledge in a scientific basis. And the word science just means knowledge, but in regard to blood, you cannot determine the race of a person just by blood. This is one of the reasons why people still use the antiquated system of measuring skulls and looking at skull features when they look at dead bodies. Blood is one thing, but basically what has been determined is that people often look a certain way. Whether they have slanted eyes or wider eyes or thicker lips or, these type of key features. Skin color is just one component of, the many types of features people can have. For one thing, you have albino people who can have the same type of features that just about any stereotypical looking African, at least phenotypically, looks like, and still have very, very light skin. So, and that can happen at random, basically, for the most part. But anyhow, there was some talk about how not all of these Romani people a long time ago, there was some talk about how some of them are Aboriginal Europeans. And of course, if you know anything about the Iberians in Britain, you would know that there is a history of there being dark people in Britain for a very long time, even from the Roman invasions. They were saying the people over there in Britain, these Celtic people and other folks, they look dark. There was a whole history of there being accounts of French people when these Romans were going to France, and they were saying these people, these Silurians and these other tribes, they look dark. These Iberians and Silurians look dark. They, were talking about their skin and their hair and so forth, and they were saying they look like dark people. History still means something. People are traveling all throughout history. And when you read historical accounts and you realize that the historical accounts do not match up with what many of these DNA tests are showing, you realize that, in sooth, they are not as accurate as people say, and this is due to the fact they cannot account for human migration. Human migration is such a thing that sort of, knowing it and understanding genealogy, which Jazz has a mother who's very interested in genealogy, and she is smart to do so because that is far more important than DNA testing. Many people here in Virginia, especially foundational black Americans, have realized that they have American Indian ancestry, and that they are, apparently, if you look at the history books, especially here in Virginia, which I guess now I live in Virginia, but anyhow, I'm not doxing myself in that sense. I mean, there's a lot of people in Virginia who knows who I am. I have to keep myself safe. Anyhow, basically, these people who, and I myself have read history books where they tell you what an Indian looks like. And apparently the Virginian Indians, most of them look dark. Most of these people who were Virginian Indians had a very dark appearance in regard to skin complexion. And this is all recorded. There are many books that talk about this. And that is a very interesting subject, and I talk about that a lot. Now, when I talk about Indians in Virginia and American Indians in Louisiana, and there's a reason why I say American Indians. because that is literally what they are described in as historically and in the census. So historical words like American Indian mean quite a lot. Any citizen that is born natively in the country is a native citizen. A Native American is any citizen born in America, legally. So American Indian is a term that has more of a substantial definition. But many of the Plains Indians over there in the Midwest and the West, part of this country, they have sort of embraced the term Native American a good deal. But if you know anything about American Indians in this land, you would know that throughout this whole country there are different types of looking, different featured American Indians. Now, if you look at the Plains Indian, most of them have a very Asian phenotype. They have very Asian appearances. They have, you can see the slanted eyes, very Asian, Siberian looking appearances. If you look at Canadian Indians, if you look at Inuits, Eskimos, they have a very strongly Asian looking appearance. They have a very strongly Siberian looking appearance. The further north you go, the more Siberian their appearance is. So the idea was that basically there were Siberians who somehow traveled here, which is not a hard thing to do from Siberia to, Alaska and, and a place like that in the United States. That's not a hard thing to do. Now there is discussion, and there has been discussion for a long time, and it is a sad thing that people like like this family member, or rather, I'm not trying to reveal too much information about the people I know, but anyway, Jazz, basically. Jazz is ashamed that people like her cannot really learn very much from the school system in regard to history, because there has been a lot of writing and proof. It has been proven that Africans traveled, migrated, for the most part, to the Americas, and that some of these Americas actually have, these American Indians actually have what may be called Negroid features. They have darker skin, they have hair that is, this has all been recorded. This is a history, so there are tribes that have heavily Negroid features, black features. Let me use the word black instead of Negroid. They both mean the same thing in a sense, because Negro means black, black means, so forth. However, black is more respectable for us English speakers. I will put it that way. And of course, oid, I think that has to do with more something Latin or Greek, scientifically. But anyhow, the school system is not teaching this. We have Indian tribes. Oh, that's right. You should. Jazz is a smart person. She is a smart person. She does her own research. Very good. That is wonderful. All of you who are viewing this now or at some other point, please listen to Jazz. Teach yourself and learn. The internet is very powerful, and we can learn a good deal. But anyhow, many of us do not know very much about tribes like the Alcomac. We have the Alcomac Indians here. They look just like regular black people. I'm not lying. You can look them up. They look just like regular black people. You have people like Lisa Cypress, who is part of the Alcomac tribe. You have a lot of members of the Alcomac tribe. They look just like regular black people. You have the Ramapo Indians. They look like regular black people, light-skinned black people. Some of them have a little Asian. Basically, the mix of features they have are what you may call African and Asian features. Basically, just like a lot of black people, for the most part. And so the idea that many people have come to is that these two populations mixed and created what, many American Indian tribes. You had somewhere from Asia or Siberia, people came. And Africans, it is known, came first. Now, how do they know Africans came to North America first? Well, there are skeletons that have been dug up. They have done their tests upon them, and they are Negroid. That is to say, black skeletons. In other words, their skull and skeletal features are those of black people. And so the oldest skeletons they find here are not Asian skeletons. They are not Siberian type skeletons with the sort of Plains Indian features. The Mongoloid features, the sort of Asian type features. No, they are skeletons with black, African, Negroid type features. So that is very interesting. This is not something that many people are taught, but it is a subject that I talk about occasionally on my channel. I want to talk more about it. It is not something that is well known about. As for the response that many Plains Indians happen to say about it, let me just be honest. It is pretty bigoted and racist. And I think because a lot of them and a lot of people have seen the movies with cowboys and Indians so much, not to mention the fact that many of these Plains Indians have received reparations from the government, whereas the foundational black population has not received any type of reparations or land or any type of real reparative, actions from the government. It is worthy to note that slave owners received reparations from the government. And that is right, slave owners. Slave owners have actually received reparations from the government. And this is something that is the history of this country. The slaves did not receive reparations, but the slave owners did. So black is a social status. White is a social status. To be honest. So you will not find anyone with black skin. You will find different people, brown and lighter hues of skin, who are black. Black never had anything to do with the physical kind or characteristics of a people. Black is just a social status. White is just a social status. That is their application in this country. Which is basically one of the main things many of us foundational black Americans are trying to teach each other and other foundational black Americans, basically. That terminology was, as far as I know, there were a few people who came up with it, but many of us are using this term to differentiate ourselves from particular black African people, in particular, black people of different backgrounds who would like to, in a sense, sort of group us in with black Africans or any other type of black group of people, basically, because it is important that we who are, the descendants of slaves, free people of color, mulattoes, American Indians and the like, Africans, what have you, can sort of have our own definition, because some people are not really respecting foundational black Americans in their place in this country and sort of their role culturally. In some cases, there's the conflation between black African immigrants and other such people who may be considered black with us, but we are a different group. When a group is in an area in a nation or a land for a long time, they have what is called an ethnogenesis. In other words, an ethnicity is created. For people living in any land, eventually those people start to have their own identity. And that is what has happened with foundational black Americans. Black people became their own type of identity. This is why many of us are no longer using the term African American. Because for one thing, we are not Africans. We live in America. And many black Americans who have went to Africa, this is Grand Knights History. Grand Knights History is a game that I did not buy this. I got this for free. I used Reshade, and this is an emulator, that I am using. Jazz uses emulators too. She knows about these things. But yes, this is Grand Knights History. It was in Japanese. This game was never translated into English. What I had to do was I had to get the patch, and I had to get the emulator, and I'm able to play it because I have the emulator. But if I did not have the emulator, I would not be able to play this game. But basically, without that emulator, no, I would not be able to play this game. This is completely Um, this is completely emulated. It looks really good because I use reshape, which fixes the colors and makes them look really pretty. But anyhow, a lot of us are getting away from the term African American. There are a lot of Africans in this country who are sort of adopting Black American culture, and in a sense, our community is sort of, it's sort of being undervalued. I will put it that way. So we just call ourselves, oh, that's Jazz thinks it's cool. Yeah, I think so too. But, and of course, this channel, let me see. There's more gameplay footage too. I like to change it up before it gets too boring. Let me see. I think I'll do some Elden Ring too. Show some of that. Yeah. I'll just show some of that too. But anyhow, basically a lot of us are using the term foundational Black American. There was a time when a lot of people were trying to get away from using the term Black. They did not want to be considered Black, but now, really, even if you call yourself an African American, you're still treated as you are a Black person. So in a sense, sort of saying you're Black is sort of a way of identifying yourself, sort of, and saying foundational Black American is a way to sort of, sort of tell people you're a descendant of the Black people in America. You're not just some Black African or whoever. No, you're Black, but you're a Black American. I mean, this is your home that you came from. Your parents and your parents' parents were here. And that's the idea of saying you're a foundational Black American, whether you're a descendant of slaves, free people of color. And the interesting thing about foundational Black American history is that not all of us, were descended from slaves. There were free people of color, and there were mulattoes. There were American Indians who were just so dark that they were just considered Black. Now, the interesting thing is if you read the racial integrity laws, if you read the history of those, the idea was that they had a lot of Indians, American Indians, who looked so dark, and they looked basically just like Black people. They had to find some way to classify them as Black, to take a lot of rights away from them and basically treat them the same way that they would any other Black person under Jim Crow laws. This was a way to give basically those of the white social status a good deal of power, even more power than they had had. And so if you were a Black person, you were a Black American Indian, that really allowed you to have some more rights than just a regular, Black American descendant of slaves or whoever. Or you could be sort of classified under that classification, because if you were an American Indian, you were basically what may be called a free person of color. And there were other Black Americans who, for example, were, they sort of were bought out from slavery and sort of freed or whatnot, and those people were free, free Blacks, so to speak. But there's this whole history, and it's mixed with, basically descendants of African and American Indians. I mean, that's just the truth. You can read the National Bureau of Ethnography. You can find all of those books. Basically, these books have been, published by our government. I mean, these are very old books that the government had basically done studies about ethnography. Basically, the study of ethnicities in America. They know all about it. They know what Black American people are. Legally, people know. They know that a lot of Black Americans are, they're not just what may be called Africans. They know that a good deal of that mixture is exactly American Indian, which is why we have a school system that just teaches that you're just African. And that's just part of the story of Black American culture. And we live in Virginia, and frankly, as Virginians, and Jazz probably remembers, because Jazz is old enough to remember the Redskins logo. Let me ask you this, Jazz. What color was the Redskin in the Redskins logo? He looked brown, didn't he? The Redskins logo, reddish brown. That was what was considered to be a redskin. You know, there were people who considered that to be too offensive. But you had brown people playing, you know, for a team with a brown American Indian. You had black people who were playing, you know, with a black Indian logo. You know, his skin did not look like a Plains Indian. You know, this is because this is the culture of Virginia. This is the culture of Washington and this East Coast. That's right. I mean, because she's young enough to understand it, because she saw, I think it wasn't but too long ago that they changed it to the Capitals. It used to be the Redskins. It used to be the Redskins, and the Redskins, their logo, it was an American Indian logo, but the Redskins had that sort of, that brown skin Indian. He certainly was not a light-skinned Asian-looking Indian. And most of those football players, what color are they? They look just as dark as that Indian on the logo, or they look darker. But for the most part, that's a reddish-brown Indian. And so, how many Indians do we see in Westerns and cowboy movies, and these sort of Plains Indians who live out there in the Midwest look like that? But let me see if I can find something, because I am on YouTube. I can show Jazz something really, and you too, because you were watching too. Let me see. What can I find? But yeah, we have the Alcomac with the Alcomac tribe. So the Alcomac was declared no longer Indian but free Negroes in 1812 to, 2023. So these are Alcomac Indians. Okay, this is Indigenous Alcomac. This is a good channel. We have a whole history, and of course, Monica might be interested in looking at some of this genealogy too, because there are a lot of people who they're getting very interested in the subject. But that even the old pictures. Now this is what a regular Plains Indian looks like. You see? This is what the regular Plains Indian looks like. She has more of those Asian features. Her skin looks kind of tan. Or you have a person with lighter skin like this person here. But it's just that there were people, because this is Lisa Cypress, she's a Virginian Indian. So there were Indians who look like us as black Americans. Okay, and if you look at these cigar Indian statues, they were how Indians were depicted here in Virginia. How they depict an Indian, for the most part, if you look historically, these people look brown. And so, a lot of people are sort of spreading the information about that. And I was trying to look for something. And I almost forget what I was trying to look for, to be honest. For some reason, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's sort of on my mind, but I can hardly remember what it was. But, some people are trying to sort of spread their culture, sort of teach people that yes, I know who I was looking for, Chief Elwyn Warhorse. Because there was some interesting thing where a lot of these people, over here on the East Coast, it seems like women had more of a role in leadership. Now that's a Choctaw Indian, this woman here, Chief Elwyn Warhorse. This woman, this is a tribal chief. Okay, she has a show called Cooking with the Chief. But she is an Indian. She's an American Indian. Many people would look at her. They would say she looks just like a regular black person. But no, that's an Indian. You can see this is her hair texture. My mom has hair texture that's kind of like hers. But this is Chief Elwyn Warhorse. You understand? So, we have black Seminoles. We have all types of dark Indians. So my point of saying this is basically there were people who would be considered black who were already here in this country before white people even came here. That is my point. Not to say that there's anything wrong from being from Africa, because there is not. Personally, I think we all came from Africa and the Near East at some point. And basically, if you're a Christian, you sort of believe that because, the Garden of Eden and all of these things are sort of situated there. But basically, DNA tests cannot tell you what race you are. DNA tests cannot tell you if you are an American Indian or a black person or whatever, because they have some preconceived social notions about what, all of these things are. I'm going to take a breath. All right. But yes, race is a social construct. There's no way you can use blood to determine race. That is why genealogy is so important. So we have, Shatta, Akamak, there's other tribes I cannot even really think of. There's talk about Black Cherokee, so many different types. So you see, the history is there. It is just that some people sort of ignore the history or pretend that it is not real, but it is real. It is real, especially for those people who live in Virginia. There's so many of these people who are practicing yoga and stretches and stuff. I keep getting these recommendations. And people like the Hebrew Israelites. They're a funny group, to be honest. I do not subscribe to them. Their ideas, but, they mess with people on the street. It's kind of funny. I mean, I know that's terrible, but yes. Sometimes I just look at them mess with people. It's just funny. I mean, I know they're really rude. I mean, they're not always rude, but they have debates with people on the street. It's funny to me. I can tell you why I disagree with them, in regard to what they believe, but they are kind of funny. I will admit they are kind of funny. But anyhow, yes. But anyhow, Jazz, you have seen, some of those Redskins logos. You know how it looks, and you know that Virginia has a history of what may be called Black Indians. That's just the truth. Some people may try to deny it, but it's true. So basically, if you look at the history books, they say American Indians and Africans were working side by side in the fields as slaves. And that has been well recorded, at least for a certain period of time, and that was a pretty long period of time. So there's so much intermixture that it is substantial. Not to mention the fact that if you take a look at the history and you take into consideration that many of these migrations were from Africa in the first place, and that some of the first people here, in all likelihood, did come from Africa. And that the oldest skeletons that we have are Negroid black skeletons. The oldest skulls that they have found are what you may call Negroid skulls, black type African skulls. That kind of shows that really that's not really surprising. Because if they came from Africa in the first place, and you had later migrations from Siberia and probably Asia that came later, you have a mixture of people. You have certain peoples over there in the plains, in the Midwest, who look like Asians. You have people over here that don't look like those type of Indians. The American Indians here in the Southeast, they look just like most black people. Okay, so this is a very interesting history. And the books are so easy to find. All of these books are primary source histories. You can find them from the 1800s, the 1700s. Books hundreds of years old. I have them. They are quite good, quite excellent, because these are old books. These are written by people who had, even were college professors back then, in the 1800s who were saying this. Who were saying you cannot really tell the difference between a Negro and an American Indian over here. For them, they look that much alike. They were talking about reddish brown skin and darker hues of skin. There were lighter skinned Indians too, but there was just a range of skin types of these people. That is very interesting. It's a history many of us foundational black Americans do not know. And it is sad that the Romani, the Gypsy people, are being told, all of you came from India. And there's a presence of darker Europeans over there in Britain and Europe. I think that some of those Romani people did come from India. However, I also think that they in all likelihood are sort of mixed with a population of people who are actually Aboriginal Europeans who have been there for who knows how long. And to be honest, who knows if those people actually came from India? Who knows how long they've been there? No one really knows. There is really very little understanding as to how those people got there. There was just dark people over there in Britain and a lot of these other places. They called them gypsies. Eventually, people have a more respectable term called Romany, you know. But in a sense, those type of, even those disrespectful terms, the terms that people give you are very important. Whether you call Negro, black, whatever, the terms that people give you have an historical purpose and value, especially in regard to genealogy. When you look up that genealogy and you realize, wait, you know, such and such was American Indian, such and such was black, it is not going to say Native American. It is not going to say African American. It is going to say, wait, this is a black person or this is an American Indian person, all of those things. Goodness, I have to take a breath. Might as well take another one too. Those sounds are very good. For the organs, and especially if you want to catch your breath. So I do them often. They also help me speak quite a lot. Very well, basically. But anyhow, basically, you know, these terminologies, they are not really, you know, they were used in disrespectful ways. The word black is often used in a disrespectful way. However, that word has more power than African American because there's more, that word sort of has a more of a historical truth to it, even in regard to social classification and ethnicity. The word African American, that word, that terminology, that particular phrase is not, it doesn't have the historical value as black in American Indian, for example. For the most part, you know, many American Indians of Alchemac or whoever, they're all considered black people now. All of those Southeast American Indians were considered black people, but black people is a social status. Eventually, those people became, you know, socially classified as black. Racial integrity laws, Jim Crow laws. So this is just the truth. A lot of us don't like the words. A lot of us don't like, you know, schools, for example, you know, and different statues and all of this old racist history. But if it's there, you know that it happened. Not to mention, when you're trying to look at your history as a family, you can learn a lot more if you sort of realize, wait, you know, my ancestors were considered this, you know. I mean, even Christian was an insult. When they were when the followers of Jesus were first called Christian, that was not a compliment. That was something that was an insult to them. And eventually Christians sort of took that name that was an insult to them, and it sort of became a very powerful name that was no longer an insult eventually. You know, even though if you're a true Christian, it will always be an insult because the world is against true Christians. The Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers. You know, turn the other cheek when you're struck. Not many people are going to do that. Those people will always sort of be against the world. But anyhow, all of that is very interesting. This, for some reason, this gameplay, the frame rate was not as good as I would have liked, because I think I had the graphic settings set in a way that was a little too intensive. But anyhow, let me see. What was I going to do? You're right here. I just play more of this. I just like colorful things. But anyhow, as for what I am planning to do in the future, I did have a very interested, you know, group of people who used to watch my manga videos. I do plan to do more manga videos. Claymore was kind of getting on my nerves because the writing was so repetitive. I was just thinking, wow, how many times is this woman? Oh, yeah, Dragon's Dogma. Jazz likes Dragon's Dogma. I used to play Dragon's Dogma with Jazz. I haven't played Dragon's Dogma in a while. Dragon's Dogma 2 is coming out, which may be interesting. I don't have any footage for Dragon's Dogma, however, but Dragon's Dogma 2 is coming out. Maybe if I can pirate that, I will pirate it. I get all of my games for free. I pirate these games. I don't pay for these games. I mean, I don't pay anything for these games. Dragon's Dogma 2 is going to come out. They are already showing a lot of it. It is going to be really exciting for people, whatever. You know, I don't really pay too much attention to games now. You know, but, I mean, they do make good commentary videos. They do make a good, you know, they're really good for commentary videos. That will probably be on all platforms. Or whatnot. Apparently this football player, he did a fade and now he's singing his thing. Black people have been doing fades for who knows how long. Forever. Whatever. You know, he's really proud of this fade. But anyhow, Dragon's Dogma 2 is coming out. But, you know, I may play that. Maybe I will not. I haven't even played Armored Core 6, to be honest. Jazz also used to play Armored Core 6. But I mean, I hardly play Armored Core 6 now, to be entirely honest. I mean, or rather, I hardly play Armored Core. But they released that with the little moving robots and such. Oh, that person must be sort of showing some other type of video. But I mean, that looks really cool. I mean, that was really exciting. It looked really nice, but I mean, there's so many games out, to be honest, but only a few are good. Only a few are good. I'll put it that way. Only a few are exciting. Only a few. Oh, let me see. Yeah, Armored Core 6 came out. It looks like this. I mean, it's really exciting. You can even get that on. I mean, that's on a lot of platforms: PS4, PlayStation 5, PC, Xbox. I mean, people like it. They say it's easier than the ones that we used to play. Me and Jazz played the hard ones. Me and Jazz play Armored Core 4 and Armored Core for Answer. And even, I have to say, I do not think I really won Armored Core 6. I won Armored Core for Answer, but I did not win Armored Core 4. They are all hard games, but this game is a little bit easier. I will say, though, it looks really good, though. It looks really good. I will say that. Honestly. But these days, I would say if you get a PC, you can get all of your games free. How does that work? I might as well show you. If you get a PC, you can get all of your games free. Repack games. I mean, there's some Russian woman, I think she's known as Fit Girl or something. She does repacks. Let me tell you, we're little thieves here. We're not thieves. We're just sharing things. We should be able to share these things. To be honest, it's just the companies want you to pay for the product, and basically they sort of own the product. You can download the product, but you can't really put it on anything else. And let me see. I have to look at Google to find this, but I get all of my games free. I get repacks. And contrary to what you may have heard, repacks actually do work really well. There are a lot of good repackers. If you go to the right sites, you can find really good repacks, quality repacks, and people help each other and talk about them. So repack games, free PC games. Sure, they're offline. Oh goodness, oh shit. Oh hell no. Some people put too many adult games on there. Let me put it that way. But you can find different games like and well, Jazz is 8. She's old enough. But anyway, yeah, I didn't expect that was going to be there. But for example, let's say you want Elden Ring. You want a repack of Elden Ring. You're not looking to play online. So you just want a repack of Elden Ring. I forgot that a lot of people put their stupid little, what are they called? The stupid little adult games there. I mean, I never go there for adult games. I just go there for games like Elden Ring. But every time you use Microsoft Edge, they have what is it called? They have the Bing search engine. I do not really use the Bing search engine that much. But anyhow, let me see. So that I do not know if this video will get age restricted, but it does not matter. It does not matter if this video gets age restricted because that's not the point. But as you can see, this is Elden Ring. Oh, Jazz is laughing. That's but anyway, this is Elden Ring. You can get Elden Ring for free. All you have to do is have a PC that can run it. This is why if you have a PC, you can get every single game that you want to play for free and not pay a single dollar at all. You will not be playing online unless you have, some games maybe you can play online for repack, but not really that well. But all of these games, fighting games, RPGs, whatever, you can find all of these games. Look at this. Look at all these games. Every single one of them is free. And most of these repacks are so good, they play exactly like every repack I've played, they play exactly like the game you buy. You may say, how is this possible? How is it possible you can get repack games and they play just as good? This is because they get the Steam product or the GOG product from from the company. So what they do is they take it and they repack it. They basically take the data. They know some way to make this data really small and compress it. What they do is that what they will basically do is they will have that data compressed, and what they will do is you will be able to play this game without signing into your Steam account. You can put it on the flash drive. You completely own that game. When you get a Steam account, you do not own that game. In other words, if Steam goes down tomorrow, all of your games are gone. If Steam wants to take your games away, they can. You do not own your games. The same thing is true for your PlayStation. Unless you have a disc, you do not own it. You absolutely do not own it. So what does a repack do? It takes the game and it sort of repacks it in such a way you can just play that on the PC that can work. If you have a graphics card, if you have a good type of core, you can play that game. Now, you may say, well, why would I want to do that? I just get a PlayStation 5, I just get an Xbox. I just play the games. But listen, this is how that saves money. Just about every game you buy is going to be, new games are going to be $60. Look at this one, it's been cut down $41. You're going to pay more for games than you ever paid for your PC. So the PC may be more expensive, and it is going to be more expensive. However, when you buy that PC, if you know where to look, you can play each one of these games for free. You don't have to pay any money, because what is going to happen is this is file sharing. Young people like Jazz probably doesn't really understand how the file sharing has sort of worked, how people have been sharing movies and different things for a long time. This is legal, however, for the most part. There are no real restrictions to repacking, because there's just nothing for it, because it's a different product that's been altered so much that you can't really call that the original game, because basically what they give you on Steam is a service. They give you data and you can repack it, and the repack is already done for you. All you have to do is download it and play it. This is why I've told Jazz, she likes video games. I said, if you buy anything, just buy a PC. Don't worry about the PlayStation exclusives. I know some people want Bloodborne 2, but that is never going to be made. FromSoft is not going to make that. They are not going to do that. I know they won't. I mean, they just simply won't. They did not make any sequel for Sekiro or DLC, so people can just give up on that. And that most of the FromSoft games are not exclusives anyway. Most of the time they make games for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. But basically, sure, you miss out on the PlayStation exclusives. But when you compare that to the fact you can get every game free, every single game that you get free, it's obvious that you want to have a PC rather than a console. It obviously is. Because if you buy if you're planning to play on a console, all right, you're just, You cannot do this. Just about every game you buy now costs what, $60, $70? Can you imagine paying $70 for a video game? Just think about it. All of you can think about it. However many people are here can think about it. I cannot really see how many people are here because this is the screen I have, but basically, I mean, I cannot even imagine paying $70 for a game. Games used to be $40. Games used to eventually got to $50, then it was $60. And at this point, people have gotten to the point now where they're just sharing. They're just sharing. Bloodborne Remaster, it's not worth playing, Jazz. Not in my opinion. I mean, unless you have a console, sure. But at this point, you know, and it's never going to come to PC, but personally, I just play Bloodborne on my old PlayStation 4. But for other things, I would just say, if you have a PC, you can play. I mean, playing games for free is just, there's no substitute for that. You're not going to be able to do that with a console. That just will not happen at all. I mean, that will never be the case. But repacks is a culture. Repack games, people have become so good at repacking these games, you won't have to pay a single dollar. A single dollar. Once you download that, you get yourself a few hard flash drives, and let me tell you, it will be just like having a game disc that you can use on any computer that you want. And I use repacks. They are really good. They're really effective. But yeah, the Bloodborne Remaster, it's, you know, a person could buy a PlayStation 5 for the Bloodborne Remaster, but it's not really that worth it. I mean, Miyazaki's games are kind of weird, and I think once you play them once or you play them a few times, you just sort of get, I mean, there's not really, I do not feel very much incentive to play them. Let me take a breath because I feel like I'm running out of breath. Let me do another one. All right. That really helps me when I'm talking. But you can find indie games, you can find 5-star games, you can find the new Diablo, all of those things. You can find all of them. Street Fighter, anything. I know the new Tekken game came out not too long ago. You know, some people like fighting games, I really don't. I mean, Diablo has a long history. It's kind of a fun history, but yeah, you can get all of this stuff for free. I know a lot of people like to play Diablo with online now, but you see, before it used to be people used to play that with co-op. People used to play it with more than one person in one room, as far as I know. But, you know, you can get all of this for free. You can get all of it for free. You can get without paying a single dollar. And frankly, that is what I do. I don't pay for these games. I'm not going to pay any company for them because they made them too expensive. And at this point, it's just people sharing. People are sharing. I mean, as I said, they have people are sharing adult porn games here. I mean, I'm sorry I showed you that. I really am. But I did not come here for that. I come here for the other games. You can find emulators too if you're looking for older games. But it really is a good website. It really is a good website to use. This girl, Fit Girl, you can support her if you want. I mean, if you have money to donate to her, Fit Girl, she has been making repacks for a long time, sharing games with people. Personally, I mean, the people that do it love doing it because it's the idea of being able to take something from companies that they don't want to really share with you unless you're using their service and basically make it, you know, sharing the product that you get with everyone. It's like how people used to do with game discs. If you had a game disc, you could let people borrow it. Now everything is digital. You can't let someone borrow your Steam account password, so you can't really share. I mean, this has brought back sharing games with other people, which you cannot do now because they're digital. You can't share a digital product with anyone. At all. I mean, maybe you can give someone your Steam account password so they can play a little bit, but no. I mean, most people, That's not a good idea, to be honest. I mean, many of the games, I think they suck now anyhow. You have these type of games like Grand Blue. I'm not very interested in this game, but everybody looks super white. I don't know what it is about Japanese people and just making super white looking characters. It's the weirdest thing. But they're obsessed, and I know why they do it, because they have a culture that is somewhat reverential of Europeans. And that's a whole type of culture we talk about often on this channel. We talk about, and I remember during a last stream, or at least a stream I'd done a long time ago, it had to do with the skin whitening products in Asia. Really? Black people use them too. It's terrible. Basically, people use a cream to make their skin lighter. People have been poisoning themselves with this stuff. People have injections to lighten their skin. People really are stupid. They don't know anything about health in general, because the darker your skin is, actually the healthier your skin is. People have very little understanding. I mean, no one should want to make their skin, actually less efficient against protecting against the sun. If you can get a tan, naturally, that really is a good thing. Okay, that really is a good thing. If you can get a natural tan, that is a good thing. Regardless of what type of skin shade you have, if you can have a natural tan, if your skin can tan, it does not burn in the sun, that really is a blessing. That really is a blessing. If you know anything about Moses' wife being cursed with whiteness. I mean, some people don't like this verse, but you have a lot of people who want to bring up white Jesus images with brown hair and blue eyes and say, so Miriam, or whoever, Miriam was punished with whiteness. She was cursed, and that was in the hot desert, and so you can imagine her skin just burnt right off. But she had to pray to God and repent in order to get her skin, sort of turned back into its natural hue. And, Egyptians, the history of Egyptians, ancient Egyptians, is them as dark people. Regardless of what you've been told by many racist Arab Egyptians who want to deny any sort of darkness of skin and complexion in that country, but it's just the truth. You had a wife of Moses who did not like one of his wives, a Cushite wife. I think he had 2 wives. He took a Cushite wife. Cush, Africa used to be called Cush. And basically she was cursed with whiteness. And in the desert, in the hot sun, or in any sunlight, having white skin is a pretty terrible thing. The lighter your skin is, the more susceptible it is to sunburn. So if you can have a natural tan, that actually protects you against the sun. The lighter you are, the faster you age. It even affects eyes. The lighter your eyes are, the more sun glare affects your eyes. Darker eyes are better eyes. The darkness in your irises, why your dark brown eyes or brown eyes protect your eyes, is because they protect you against sun glare. So, you can take a look at this. Sun glare. Something like gray eyes or something. Sun glare. Gray eyes are more sensitive to sunlight. People of light-colored eyes, blue, green, or gray, are more likely to be sensitive to bright light. The darkness protects you. The darkness protects your eyes. The darkness protects your skin. So those of us who have darker skin and eyes than what may be phenotypically considered to be white, the darkness is protecting us. When you age, that darkness, that melanin in your skin is protecting you as you age, protecting you against sunlight. That dark eyes, those dark eyes, the melanin in your eyes is protecting you against sunlight. So that's not something, many people say, I want blue eyes, I want gray eyes. They're more sensitive to sunlight. People really do not believe it. A lot of people really do not believe what science has found. Lighter skinned people and lighter eyed people came from darker people. If you've ever seen an albino person, they have problems with their vision and with their skin. The reason they have problems with it is because it's so light. All right. Oh goodness, I'm still looking at this. Let me go here. But the reason they have problems with their skin is because the skin is so light. It doesn't matter what type of phenotype you have. You know, you can be an albino. There are albinos who are African. There are albinos of all types and shades. But basically, the lighter your skin is, the more susceptible it is to the sun. Now, what does sunburn looks like? You know, it's a powerful thing. A lot of us who are black, we were told, hey, your skin and eyes, they look ugly. Does this happen to us? A lot of those people who are Near Eastern, Armenian, North African, many of these people, even Kim Kardashian, she is considered white by the American census standards. Did you know that? Okay. Now, some people think, oh, I'm not white. I'm not, you know, I feel less about myself. But you have to realize, darker skin, it does not matter what anyone says. Even if you're just sort of a light-skinned person, you know, it's a blessing. It's a, you know, that darker skin tone is a blessing. It protects you from the sun. This does not happen to, you know, to basically to darker peoples. Not on this scale. When they lay out in the sun and don't put any sun lotion on, it's dangerous. Even for someone as light as Kim Kardashian. Okay? Now, you've heard of sunburn, but you have likely not heard of sun poisoning. It's important that a lot of our foundational black American people sort of understand that this is a real thing. We don't need to feel as though we're some type of inferior race because of our skin. No, that God blessed us. When it said in the Bible that Moses' wife was cursed with whiteness, you really have to think about what that means. What does it mean Miriam was cursed with whiteness over there in the hot Egyptian desert? It means that woman's going to get sunburned. She's going to feel a lot of pain. They didn't have suntan lotion back then. As black people, as foundational black Americans, most of us, even the light-skinned people among us, do not really need suntan lotion. Oh, yes. I mean, it's the truth. I mean, this is something that a lot of people, they don't think about. There was a reason why foundational black Americans, whether they were American Indians or Africans, were working in the cotton fields. Their skin can take sunlight and heat. Their eyes are darker. They're not, the sun in their eyes is not being it's not so powerful to which they're getting sun glare in their eyes. This is just how humanity has sort of progressed. You know, mankind was dark and became lighter over time. That's why having darkness in your skin and darkness in your eyes, those brown eyes, oh, people say, oh, if only you had blue eyes. Well, the brown eyes are actually better. The Lord made them that way. They're dark for a reason. They're dark because when the sun hits that dark iris, it protects your eyes. It protects your eyes when, you know, the sunlight hits that dark iris. But, you know, I mean, these are all things that many of us don't think about. We don't think about how blessed we are in that sense. Okay, this is some other stuff. I mean, of course, some people said Miriam's cursed for being racist, which, not really, because the idea is that if she was cursed with whiteness, she wouldn't be white in the first place. She would be dark in the first place. And many of us already know that. If she's cursed with whiteness, she wasn't white in the first place. She wasn't that light in the first place. But anyhow, I mean, all of that is just something to think about. You know, in all likelihood, they don't say that she didn't like the Cushite white because she was black. I mean, it just simply says she didn't like the Cushite wife, which, you know, they come from different nations. But the idea, oh, she's being racist, it doesn't necessarily have to do with race. It's just that for them, whiteness was a curse. They're out in the hot sun in the desert in Egypt. They're traveling, and you're cursed with whiteness. You can get sun poisoning or sunburn. It's terrible. I mean, that's going to make you age fast. That's going to burn. I mean, and I recommend anyone to just don't stay out in the sun. If you have skin that's light, don't stay out in the sun. Don't do it. Sun poisoning is a real thing. I mean, you may have heard all of that master race stuff, European master race stuff. That is a joke. You see this pretty woman, here we go. The skin is made different. It's not made to be out there in the sun. I hate to say it, I'm not trying to clown on my viewers who are Caucasian descent. I mean, honestly, I'm not trying to do it. But at this point, the conversation went here, and I'm just talking about it. You know, use suntan lotion. Be very careful. You're not like us. There was a reason why our ancestors were out there in the fields doing the work. And there's a reason why there's still Mexicans, Latinos out there doing the work. Even though it seems like many governments are trying to replace us with Latino, population in regard to labor. But hey, that's been going on a long time. A lot of us see that, and they come from different cultures. If you don't know about Mexican neo-Nazis, then, it's quite something. There's Mexican neo-Nazis. There's Mexican neo-Nazis out there, and they're really racist, and they're kind of weird. There's a whole Nazi movement over there in Mexico, and okay, they're not showing me images of it. Why aren't they showing me images of this? Okay, new militia was a neo-Nazi skinhead, but anyhow, there's black Mexicans are treated in a certain way in Mexico that's not so good, not so flattering, I'll put it that way. But anyway, let's stop talking about this, or else most of white viewers are not gonna I mean, I'm not trying to clown on them. I'm just talking to a friend or a particular person here who I know, Jazz, and we're two foundational black Americans. We're just kind of having some value for our skin and stuff. But at the same time, I have to say, if you are a white person, don't go out in the sun without suntan lotion. Don't do it. You weren't made for it. God made us all different. I'm just saying, you weren't made for it. You're gonna hurt. It's not good for your skin. You don't want to age that fast. You don't want to look like you're 50 in your 40s or something, or you're like 40 when you're like in your 30s. Okay, I mean, you don't want to look like that. You don't want to have your skin burn off. You don't want to get sunburned and have to peel. You just don't want to do it. I mean, when I talk about that subject, it is kind of, I mean, it's a subject that does offend people, but I talk about it every so often. I call it sun sensitivity because it's sun sensitivity. Some people are sun sensitive. I mean, some people just are. If you get sunburn, you're sun sensitive. If you get sun poisoning, you're sun sensitive. I just put it that way. That's just how it is. I mean, not that I'm trying to be rude or anything, it's just the truth. Many of us foundational black Americans, most of us are not sun sensitive. We don't get sunburn. Even light-skinned foundational black Americans, for the most part, they don't get sunburn. Alright? They tan well, they tan really good. And the same is true for Asians. Even though you have a lot of Asian people, they want to get injections for skin whitening. You have other black people in Africa and the Caribbean, they want to get not injections for skin whitening. That is more of a, how should it be said? That is more of an Asian thing. That's more for the people who have the money to do it. But yeah. So, I mean, this channel is about culture, religion, all types of things, a wide range of subjects. As a foundational black American, my opinions can in some cases be a bit different from what you've heard. Really different from what you've heard, but I mean, for those of us, who are foundational black Americans, these are things that some people are familiar with or are not familiar with. Maybe they've never heard things like this. But it's just that many of us have been told, white skin and blue eyes is what makes you beautiful. And there are some people who believe that. And I just have to say, well, sunburn is not beautiful. And those of us who are foundational black Americans, I just think it is important for us to have a value for our skin and eyes and who we are. You know, because a lot of white people certainly do value theirs. And if we, as foundational black Americans, valuing the fact that we don't get sunburn, that's something that we were sort of blessed with in a sense, you know, I just have to say, that's just something that we do every now and then. We just sort of think, and it's something many white people have not heard, though we have all heard the story about blue-eyed babies and all these things that people like and really give praise to. We hardly hear people give praise to dark brown eyes that resist sun glare, that are good in the sun, skin that is, you know, brown and light brown and tan, that's able to basically resist sunlight and not get sunburnt. We hardly hear people give praise to that. So basically, occasionally what I do, I give praise to that. I say, this is excellent. It really is a good thing that we have skin that protects us. And basically, that's the idea about me doing that. When I look at people with sunburn, I'm not trying to sort of make fun in some sort of way where I'm just sort of saying, you know what, these people, ha ha ha. No. It's just, if this was not a reality, there would not be pictures of it proving it. Don't go in the sun if your skin is this light and sort of without suntan lotion or anything like that. It's just the truth. I mean, it's not worth it. Put on whatever you need to put on. Put on whatever suntan lotion or whatever you need to put it on. If you know you're not going to tan, well, you need to put something on your body. Okay, but anyhow, I am sort of getting a little too involved with that subject. I'm getting a little too involved with that subject, but no, that sun poisoning and sunburning is it's not pretty. It's not pretty, but it happens. And, you know, our skin as foundational black Americans, it does not do that for the most part. You know, we don't have those problems for the most part. For the most part, those are not problems we have. Those are not problems that we really sort of have to deal with. But you can eat things to help you, like carrots and black beans and different things. I mean, there are some things you can use to help you have more melanin in your skin, but, you know, and even darken your complexion if you know how. You know, you can do that naturally in a sense, and you can help yourself that way. You know. But yeah, I mean, that's just a very interesting thing. I think about it sometimes. I do. I'm not done out of offense. Not done because I'm just a mean person. I just want to talk. That person had sunburn. No, I don't do that. But, you know, it's just something that's very relevant. And sometimes as foundational black Americans, we think about it. I mean, it just is. Just like there are a lot of white people say, you know what, blue eyes are great. White skin are great. I say, hey, that's great for you. You like them. You think they're the greatest thing ever. That's wonderful. If you think those eyes are so great, that's wonderful too. I think brown eyes are great. I think brown skin is great. I think light brown skin is great. All the shades as us foundational black Americans come in, I think they're great. I think they're just wonderful because they, you know, they look beautiful for a very, very, very long time, for the duration of our lives, and they hold up well. I'm not going to say anything about white skin and gray eyes and all of these different colors, you know, that we see in the European population holding up well, because they don't. God made things a certain way, and it's just that for whatever reason, brown eyes and, you know, light brown and brown skin and dark brown skin, all of those seem to hold up well against the sun. That's just the truth. I can't help that that's the truth. It just is. But anyhow, I am sort of getting a little... The more I talk about this, the more I'm probably going to annoy, you know, my white viewers, and I'm not trying to do that. It's just, you know, I never know how the conversation is going to go or where the conversation is going to go. Some people may understand me, some people may not, and I would just simply say that if I talk about something, do not take what I say too seriously, honestly, because what I say can kind of, you know, if you take it seriously, it's not worth it. I'm just a person talking on the internet. I'm just a person having fun, and talking on the internet, just expressing my opinions on the internet. It's not that serious. It really isn't. I mean, you don't have to take it that serious. I mean, really, you just don't. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, it's just the internet. But anyhow, yes. So that was kind of fun to talk about. And now that I think about it, I don't even remember what I was talking about before then, basically. But basically, I mean, this whole sort of live stream was about me just giving an update, talking about what I talked about, talking to any subscribers I may have, just in general. Just in general, not a video about any particular thing, just me talking. But anyhow, what am I planning to do? I'm planning to do more Claymore videos. I haven't done those in a while. I think maybe I should do some more Claymore videos. I think that my Elden Ring videos, they have... I really think I'm going to do those later. I think I'm going to do some more Elden Ring videos later, but not... I think the videos I'm going to be sort of making very soon, they're going to be about another subject. LOL, you weren't talking about video game. Oh yeah. Let me see if I can see her comment, her chat better here. Oh yeah, that's right. I was talking about video game repacks. That is true. But now, in regard to, and it is a good deal. I mean, if you have a PC that is decent, you will save so much money by just getting a PC that's decent and just getting repacks, just downloading those repacks on your PC and playing your games. And never, basically, you're going to be playing mostly offline if you play with repacks. I mean, there are people who I think know how to use some repacks online, but that's kind of a convoluted process, I imagine, because I certainly don't do it. I just play offline. But for example, you can get Armored Core 6 on a repack. You can play this game I'm rather looking at now on a repack. But anyhow, I do make some manga videos, narration and commentary videos, and I will probably be doing those in the near future. If I feel like it, I probably will be doing it, because I had a lot of people who really did like those, especially Claymore. Now, I have been reading Uncle from Another World, and I have been sort of doing narration videos for those, but for those videos, for these sort of narration commentary videos, it is better if I do 2 or 3 at one time and then just upload them. So that will take some time, because I have to prepare and sort of do that in the right way. And my voice is always, I have to really pay attention to how I sort of read things out. I do my best, but, narration can only be so good. I'm not a voice actor. I just try my best, basically. I mean, reading the female voices is awfully difficult. I mean, I try my best. I try to sort of do things in a very, enjoyable way that, But, I mean, for those videos, what is so good about them, I guess, or at least many people sort of like, is the fact that I give commentary too. Some people just sort of like the opinions that I give in those videos, because basically that's sort of a review and a narration video at the same time, which, in regard to manga videos, you do not see that on YouTube. I haven't. I've looked on YouTube for manga videos, but I really do not see them. But this video's win. Let me think, what else do I have to talk about in regard to an update? Basically, the social commentary videos have apparently been doing really well, and I do plan to talk about more social things. It is all very interesting. I also have another channel on this platform about a particular subject that is somewhat controversial. I'm not really going to sort of expose to anyone. But anyhow, yeah, that was the latest video about Monique and how she says she prays to the universe. Why would you pray to something that does not have a mind, does not think? I don't know. I mean, I've heard some weird things. The universe talks to you. How does the universe talks to you? I am part of the universe. If I talk to you, then that's the universe talking to you. That's how stupid that is. But anyhow, sometimes I have to talk about how certain things don't make sense. These guys are just crazy. They're messing with people on the street. I mean, oh no. I mean, not to say that I really approve of everything they do. They're just kind of crazy. Personally, I think that they are sort of a cult. But, I mean, it's just funny to watch people in the street get messed with. But anyhow, whether I agree with them or not, they just do. That's a guilty pleasure. I don't know why. But anyhow, let me think, what else do I plan to do? But basically, that's about it. I mean, I have some videos planned. Probably a good deal of them are going to be about manga. Probably. At least a good proportion of them, because I have not done one of these videos about manga in a long time. And I had told someone, I said, I don't often, when I do things like this, I don't like to leave them unfinished. Because there was a person who was reading Berserk, I think. But I think they were trying to act like voice actors or something. And they weren't doing it in an amateur way. I'm doing this in an amateur way. I'm not looking for voice actors to sort of voice act whatever this is I'm doing. This is just me sort of doing some narration, expressing my opinions about the manga. That is it. But, you know. Okay, I had to drink some water. But that is it. That is all I'm doing. But, let me think, what else was I going to say? Yes, that person was reading a manga called Berserk. Pretty crazy manga, but he never finished reading it. He never finished doing those reading videos. So, I eventually plan to finish these videos at some point. How that is going to work out, I do not know. But basically, I keep doing them because I had started them, and I say, even though I am not as interested in this subject as I used to be, I still sort of do it. Because at this point, you know, it's sort of something that when I first started this channel, I did not really expect to become as popular as it did, but some people really did like it, and whether those people are viewing or not, I just like to have those videos done, even if they're done, you know, months apart, even if they're done, you know, even if I'm not making any progress on the chapters. There were people who were watching at one point, so, you know, those videos are still being made. It just takes a long time, at least for me, and there may be a time where I sort of start doing like 3 or 4 at a time and just doing it faster, but you know, I have always sort of had some difficulty really doing those videos that fast. So anyhow, I think that is just about everything I want to talk about, to be honest. So I'm just going to say, Jazz, I hope you have a good day. Because I think I'm going to end this live stream right now, because I've talked about a lot of things, and plus I've talked about everything I want to do, sort of in the future with the channel. Yeah. I really do not think I have very much else to say. But, you know, I do have content planned. And I think it probably will be manga for those who watch the channel for me to read manga. As for anything else, I really don't know, to be honest. I really don't. I mean, my immediate plans are sort of okay. Yeah, you too, Jazz. But yeah. So everything seems to be working out well. And for those of you who did attend the stream, May you be blessed and farewell. Yes.